Ethan had always believed in trust. It wasn't just a word to him, it was a foundation, a principle that guided his every action. He and Sarah had been together for 5 years, building what he thought was a rock-solid relationship. They shared everything: dreams, struggles, laughter, and late-night conversations that stretched into the early hours. He had never doubted her, never questioned her loyalty. That was his mistake. The betrayal came like a gut punch, unexpected and cruel. It started with a nagging feeling, a shift in Sarah's behavior that he couldn't quite place. She had become more secretive, guarding her phone like it contained state secrets, taking calls in hushed tones, and suddenly working late hours that never used to exist. At first, Ethan dismissed his doubts as paranoia. But the sinking feeling in his chest refused to fade. The truth unraveled on a cold Friday night. Ethan had planned a surprise for Sarah, a quiet dinner, just the two of them, to reconnect after their increasingly distant weeks. But when he arrived at her apartment, the surprise was his. He found Sarah with another man. Not just any man, his closest friend Jason. The scene played out in excruciating slow motion. The guilty glances, the hurried scramble to cover up, Jason's pathetic attempts at explanation, and Sarah's silence, which hurt the most. Ethan's world fractured in that moment. The pain was raw, visceral, an unbearable weight pressing down on his chest. He had trusted her with everything, and in return she had shattered him. Anger, heartbreak, and humiliation churned together in his mind, drowning out any rational thought. He left without a word, but something inside him had shifted. He wasn't just heartbroken, he was resolved. The betrayal wasn't the end of the story. It was only the beginning. Ethan spent days in silence, letting the pain morph into something sharper, more controlled. He didn't want to just walk away, he wanted justice. Not the kind that involved yelling or confrontations, but something deeper, something that would make Sarah and Jason feel the weight of their betrayal. His plan took shape slowly, each detail meticulously crafted to exploit their weaknesses. Sarah thrived on social status, on the illusion of a perfect life. Jason, on the other hand, had ambitions that heavily relied on his reputation. Ethan decided to strike them both where it would hurt the most. He started with Sarah. Using an alternate social media account, he began leaking small, seemingly harmless bits of gossip about her infidelity, nothing outright incriminating, just enough to fuel curiosity and suspicion among her friends. It didn't take long before whispers turned into open conversations. Her once pristine image started to crack. For Jason, Ethan took a different approach. He had access to crucial emails and messages that painted Jason in an unflattering light, ones that could easily dismantle his career prospects. Instead of a direct attack, Ethan fed this information anonymously to the right people: employers, colleagues, and even a few of Jason's rivals. The ripple effect was immediate. But the piece de resistance was the grand reveal. Ethan orchestrated a gathering under the guise of reconciliation, inviting mutual friends, including Sarah and Jason. The atmosphere was light, cordial, until Ethan unveiled the final act of his plan. A slideshow, seemingly innocent at first, slowly unraveled the truth. A picture of Sarah's clandestine meetings, Jason's incriminating messages, and finally, a closing statement that left no room for doubt. The room fell into stunned silence. Sarah's face drained of color, Jason fumbled for words, but there was no escape. Ethan had ensured that their betrayal was no longer just his burden to bear, it was now public knowledge. As he walked away that night, for the first time in weeks, Ethan felt a weight lift off his shoulders. He hadn't just gotten revenge, he had reclaimed his power. But revenge had its own consequences. The fallout was swift and brutal. Sarah's social circle crumbled, leaving her isolated. The whispers turned into outright disdain, and soon she found herself avoiding public spaces altogether. She had always prided herself on control, on being admired, but now she was nothing more than the subject of ridicule and pity. She tried to salvage what was left, spinning stories of misunderstanding, but the damage had been done. Her once perfect world was now in ruins. Jason fared no better. His reputation took a nosedive, and the professional opportunities he had counted on evaporated overnight. The people he had relied on distanced themselves, unwilling to be associated with his disgrace. He was left scrambling, desperate to pick up the pieces of his career, but doors that were once open now slammed shut in his face. As for Ethan, the victory felt hollow in the days that followed. The rush of reclaiming his power gave way to a quiet emptiness. He had won, but at what cost? He had exposed them, made them suffer, but the weight of it all still lingered. Closure didn't come as neatly as he had hoped. The betrayal had left scars, ones that even revenge couldn't erase. And yet, in the end, he knew he had done what he had to do. He had faced his pain, taken control, and walked away stronger. The past would always be there, but it no longer held him captive. He was free. The verdict: am I the a-hole? When Ethan shared his story on the Am I the A-hole forum, the responses were divided. Many users praised him for standing up for himself, arguing that his revenge was justified given the depth of the betrayal. They got what they deserved, one commenter wrote. Cheaters never expect consequences, and Ethan made sure they faced them. Others, however, questioned whether he had gone too far. You had every right to be angry, but ruining their lives completely? That makes you just as bad as them, another user pointed out. Some believed that revenge only prolonged his suffering, preventing him from truly moving on. From a moral standpoint, Ethan's actions blurred the lines between justice and vindictiveness. On one hand, he ensured Sarah and Jason faced the consequences of their betrayal. On the other, he deliberately orchestrated their downfall, making it impossible for them to recover. Did he achieve closure, or did he let revenge consume him? What do you think? Was Ethan justified in his actions, or did he take things too far? Share your thoughts in the comments below.